Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here. I'm joined today by Winston Faircloth. How are you, Winston?
Amy, I'm doing great today. Thanks.
Thank you for joining me. I would love to just sort of give everyone a little bit of a heads up about you, Winston, if they haven't come across you before. I know you have over 30 years experience and you work with visionary CEOs, particularly in the non-for-profit space. You're the founder of For Love of Team. And you really help people to embed the strategy in their organizations, not just have their strategy sitting on a wall where they can look at it and not do anything with it. So thank you for joining me today. And I'd love to dive in a little bit more around, what you're doing these days and also just how you actually landed in the work that you're doing now.
So, Amy, thanks. My whole career has been in and around nonprofits. It was an accidental career coming out of school, but it's something that's been super rewarding to me and something I've really felt passionate about in terms of the purpose that the nonprofit sector plays and actually the lack of respect that nonprofits have, kind of proving ourselves as independent businesses and having the same challenges that every other business has, just a different resource structure. So more recently, my career has been inside the nonprofit sector and then servicing the nonprofit sector with a technology company and other services over the years. But most recently, I came back to my nonprofit roots and started working with the groups of nonprofits that I started with almost 40 years ago now, and really working with their leadership teams. Because if you look at culture and you look at effectiveness of the group, it really begins and ends with that leadership team, especially the visionary leader and how they can sometimes be disconnected. Their visions are beautiful and energizing, but then in terms of how those become implemented, there can be really a breakdown. And so translating that visionary leader into operations and actions are a big part of what we do. We have a program called Compass, which really helps these organizations craft their North Star, mostly from an identity standpoint. It's not just what we do, but it's who we are. And a lot of times we move right to the tactics and not really take a step back to solidify our identity and purpose. And then from that, we have a series of offerings that help people put scalable processes in place because that vision has to have a foundation under it. So we do process improvement, optimization, and make those processes scalable. And that's actually where a lot of the post setting that vision, the next thing that most people are really gravitating to is equipping their teams with a scalable process playbook. We call it playbook.
Brilliant. You're right there, particularly in the non-for-profit space, very driven by purpose and impact and, have all these great ideas about what they want to make happen and all of the great things to do in the world. But then there's a point of like, okay, well, how are we going to execute this? And how are we actually going to embed this with the team and coming from the top, in leadership as well. So I think that's really great. And where did your passion start from, Winston, when it comes to the non-for-profit space? How did that come about for you?
I was actually exposed to not-for-profits as a young kid in elementary school. We were invited to participate in a giving program at school where we could give back to the community. And I was there was something about that experience of giving back that really kind of sparked something in me. And I've always had kind of a heart up for service, but I didn't think about it as a job or a career until college. And I had an accidental interview. We had a recruiter come on to campus, and I'd been thinking about doing something in the university setting. But when that recruiter came onto campus and they said, "Oh, people have a career in this," I thought, wow, I never even considered it. And where I landed was a nonprofit that was kind of a hybrid between the corporate sector and the not-for-profit sector. So they were a bridge. They were an organization that really worked in both realms to bring those two groups together to drive community change and impact. And so it just was an accident to be connected initially, but I loved it from the very beginning and spent the first 18 years of my career in executive roles in that not-for-profit organization.
That's great. And one thing you mentioned before I thought was really interesting is that you sort of found your way back to the non-for-profit space. So for a lot of us, sometimes when we say we can go after a particular industry, when we start to think about who our ideal clients are and who we really want to be working with, sometimes in the back of our mind, we can feel like we're missing out on some opportunities or we're not open to some opportunities. So I'd love to hear just from your perspective, what that journey was like for you to go from, having experience across the board in many different businesses and then really sort of settling into the non-for-profit niche.
A great question. Thanks, Amy. I will say that for me, the second phase of my career was I built a for-profit business that served the not-for-profits I was very familiar with. So I moved a bit into the entrepreneurial space and had that for another 15 years of my career. It was great to build something from zero into something that was a meaningful annual income and a good market share in terms of our technology services to the not-for-profit sector.
Yep.
But then after that, once I stepped away from that founder role, I really kind of flailed around for a bit. I was trying to find, and I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. And so in a lot of ways, I didn't think that not-for-profits were the cool kids. I wanted to pursue kind of that small to medium business, that founder. I'd come out of a founder role. I thought I had a message to share there. And for love of team, frankly, the name of the company comes from a failing I had in that technology company because I loved our vision and the services we were bringing. I loved the people that paid for it, our clients, but I didn't really love my team so much. I thought they were kind of impediments to my beautiful vision. So as I left that, as I started for Love of Team, I really felt compelled to help that founder community. And it wasn't until I was having a conversation with my accountant a couple of years ago, and I was, I was splitting my time between those two worlds. I was doing some work for not-for-profits, and I was doing work in this small to medium business world. And my accountant asked me, she said, "So why are you spending so much time on this small to medium business sector where you're struggling, you're not getting the traction you want, and yet your not-for-profit portfolio looks pretty promising?" And I said, "Well, nonprofits aren't real businesses." And she said to me, she said, "Well, you may not think they're real businesses, but your bank account does." And that moment was that light bulb moment that said, go back to your roots, go back all in, stop splitting your time between multiple initiatives, hoping that one of them will work, and instead go back to what really is working. And so that light bulb moment, sometimes it takes an outside coach or a confidant to speak truth to you. And it took that for me to actually say, oh my goodness, this is the productive part of my work. It's what I love. I have great connections there. I have a legacy there that people resonate, and I speak the language. I know what people are dealing with and what they're experiencing. So a lot of times, just to put a point on this, your question really is the key question, which is, who are we here to serve? And sometimes when we've had a long-term career, we think we have to do something completely different. And yet that earlier version of ourselves is waiting for us to come and serve them.
Totally. I love that. A lot of our, clients as coaches and consultants, you just said it, are the earlier version of ourselves as well. And so being able to do that means it just comes really naturally. Like you said, you already know the language, you can relate to them, you've got a network sort of around that too. So I think it's great that you've done the right thing there in terms of doubling down on what's actually working. There's so many business owners and people out there that think, oh, well, that worked, let me go and look at something else and let me go and apply it to something different, right? And that's where they can lose focus and kind of fall off the rails a little bit.
Well, and just to build on that, since that moment, I've actually continued to narrow. I mean, sometimes I think we have to cast our net so broadly in terms of our service offerings or our audience. And what has happened over the time that we've worked together and since is that I continue to just go more micro in terms of that focus, both from a services perspective and the audience of the potential clients I want to serve.
Yeah, love that. And as you started to do that, because I know we met when you were at that sort of crossroads of deciding, do I go deep into this or do I stay a little bit broader? And so since you've sort of taken that journey and you've really started to refine your niche, and I think it's interesting how we can think that our niche is small enough, and then we realized, well, actually there's more that we can actually get more specific about. So I'd love to hear, like, what are some of the results or the outcomes having gone through that journey?
Well, it was the journey of going back to the organization I worked with at the very beginning of my career. Even though some of my contacts were not as strong because I had tried to go in this other direction, I had to re-engage and reconnect and reintroduce myself, honestly, to a lot of the players in that space. And that's where LinkedIn was super important, to be able to, I knew the organizations I wanted to connect with, but I didn't necessarily know the people there that like I once did. And so LinkedIn has been a very invaluable tool for me in terms of figuring out who those folks are and seeing what they're interested in, and also narrowing our offer to them. And what I noticed in getting to know more of the folks back in that sector was that they've had this huge influx of new talent coming into the organization, like many other businesses. And yet they don't, a lot of that institutional knowledge has left the organization. And that's where this process optimization and building more scalable processes has been a huge pain point for these visionary leaders, because they cast this vision, but then there's no great way to implement. And so that's, we started out initially working with leadership teams and those visionary leaders, but their biggest pain point is, how do we equip the team to execute and do what they do best without me getting in the middle of that? And so for nonprofits especially, they don't typically have the bandwidth or the perspective, the outside perspective, to kind of challenge some of those status quos. Or on the other hand, they're also new. They don't know what they don't know in terms of blind spots in their work. And so having the domain experience, having the relevant domain experience, allows me to kind of cut both ways, both innovate and protect against potential risk. And so that's been a really interesting unfolding as we've gone more and more micro in the niche.
Yep, fantastic. And you mentioned LinkedIn there as well, was a big part of that in terms of saying, okay, well, this is, now I'm really clear on who I serve, and the results and the outcomes I can get for clients. And then it became a matter of now having to put that out there on LinkedIn. So I'd love to hear from you, like, what was that experience like for you in terms of starting to go from maybe a little bit behind the scenes, having people in your network that you knew, to then really starting to expand onto the platform and using social media as a tool in the business? What was that like for you?
Well, we had to get creative because I needed to reintroduce myself. I had gone so far away from this niche that I needed to kind of reintroduce myself and more importantly, what we believe in. And so we did because love is a big part of our brand. We did a fun social media promotion during February. And so we did 28 days of team love. And we talked about different strategies and techniques to show love and embody love to our team members as a way to reintroduce the company to our niche. And we did bring out some United Way, and that's the niche that I work with, some United Way case studies in that process as well. So that began to reintroduce us, as we also did direct outreach to the top 100 United Ways in North America and their executives, to begin to say, hey, this is something that we're all interested in and about. Is this something that you resonate? Would you like to be a first level connection? In many cases, we didn't have that relationship before.
Yeah, great. And so what was the impact on the business, having done some of those activities, going from just relying on sort of referrals and word of mouth in the beginning, then getting very, very specific on your niche, and then starting to really put together some social media campaigns on LinkedIn? What happened for you for the business?
Oh, it was incredible. We booked in the first quarter of this calendar year, we booked as much as we've ever booked in any calendar year. So we booked enough business in the first quarter, and now we've doubled that again here at the end of the second quarter. So the work we're doing is easy. The ticket level per client is much higher. So we're very selective. We're working with right now 10 organizations, and we've doubled revenue just by being selective and being focused on a few that we can go deep with.
Wow. So you're working with less clients, more money?
Yes. 2x the money and, many fewer clients. I think
how's the headaches and the lifestyle?
Yeah, the lifestyle's been really good. It's been, our opportunity now is scaling. And so part of what we've imagined is doing more of this work in a cohort format. Because while it's important to be clear at the local organizational level what you're trying to do, there's also a real benefit of being part of a community. And we see a hunger within our group to connect with their sister organizations. And so we're going to facilitate that in a fall offering where we can scale it and actually continue to make this more profitable, but more importantly, more relevant for our clients.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you've gone from doing like the one-to-one and the projects and feeling a little bit, dare I say, scattered in the beginning with wearing multiple hats, working with multiple different business owners and different niches, to now just getting really laser focused into who you're there to serve, working with the right kinds of people, right kinds of clients. You've got a way to attract them on LinkedIn.
We do. And, part of what I say to our team to keep us focused is for our niche, there are 300 people in the world that we want to serve. They work in 100 different organizations. Does that mean we don't serve other people or don't have other offerings? No, not at all. In fact, we're working with a commercial real estate organization in Texas. So it's relevant and it's related to what we do, but it doesn't mean that we are chasing all these other ones. But that was a referral, that was a perfect fit, and we work with them.
Yep. Fantastic. So I think that's, people's biggest fear, right, when they go to really niche down, is that they're going to miss out on all of these opportunities. I think what I love about what you've done is you've proven that otherwise. You've actually built more opportunities from going more specific into your niche.
Yes. And to me, Amy, I think that is the hardest thing for a starting entrepreneur. We're not quite sure which one's going to work. So we spread ourselves way too thin across too many different opportunities.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to learn it. And I hope that people can learn from our mistakes and take advantage of just going all in on something and seeing if it works. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, go to the next idea. But trying to do 3 or 4 was exhausting and unprofitable for us.
Yeah. And it just, splits your focus as well. When we think about wanting to get our clients results and the outcome and the impact that we want to make, which is for most of us as coaches and consultants, the real end game for us is really seeing that transformation with our clients. And when you can go all in and you can go deep with them, and then you get a bigger result for them as well, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I love the work we do. I love the opportunity that this work gives us to influence the culture internally too. It is not apparent when we make the offer, but the conversations we're able to have and the difference we're able to make once we're inside the organization is really important. And our goal, frankly, I would rather have 10 long-term clients in this work than 50 short-term clients. And that just fills our heart and makes us feel really happy about the work we're doing.
Brilliant. You work with so many teams, Winston. So I'd love to dive into actually your team within the business, because I know that's a big part of obviously scaling, and now that you're at that edge of growth and really sort of looking at some group offerings and different ways to scale in that regard. So how's the role of team played for you in really with the LinkedIn marketing side of things? How has that played out for you? And can you give us a little insight into terms of the makeup of your team?
Yes. So I would say that I'm learning as a new team builder ourselves to hire uncomfortably early. That is becoming one of our mantras. We were just having this conversation yesterday, because the work we're doing to scale these processes, there are elements of it that feel very aligned and within my unique gifting or ability, and there are things that are not, and that's true for every team member on our team. So I'm doing most of the front stage work in terms of the client facing work, and at some point I really need to be able to have that also managed by others. So we're building the processes to enable that. I have a team member, Amanda, who is kind of our quarterback of the backstage. And so she is the one who I have to honestly learn to release and to let her do what she's gifted at doing. And we actually had this conversation yesterday. It's like, I'm taking back too many things that are really your realm, and we need to, this is not working and it's not going to work. So she's like, I'm here for that. And then as we look at her work, we say what's not in her unique ability. And that then created the third position that is more marketing and content focused. So, each time we bring a team member on, we look at what the business needs are, but we also focus on what is your gift and what do you love to do the most. And then if there's something that we're asking you to do that then is taking up too much of your time that you're not great at, that's when we're taking the next step of adding another team member to the roster. And we're actively searching for, if I had the magic wand today, I would love to find somebody that is a technical writer that loves process mapping and process flows, because we got the rest of this really well baked. But that I need somebody, that's the next piece of the puzzle for us, is to find somebody that they love that more than anything else in the world. And I know they're out there. We just need to find them and ask them to join our process.
Yeah, brilliant. So you've got a few key team members in a few key roles there as well. And what I love about that, Winston, is I think that for many of us, who've been in the corporate space before and even are working with teams and coaching leaders and executives, sometimes we don't have the desire in our own businesses to build a team of 100 people and do all of that management and leadership that comes along with that as well. And so I love that you've been able to build this business, which is a hugely profitable business, with a few key team members, and have done that to really set you up to scale as well, which I think is really awesome.
Yeah, and I will say our team members teach me more sometimes than I teach them. One funny story was recently, Amanda and I have worked together now for 7 or 8 years in different capacities. She's been through this whole journey of focus and lack thereof. And one time I was really kind of a little offended. She kept asking me the why question. Why are we doing this and why are we doing that? And I was like, well, because I'm the boss. And and she said, Winston, the reason I ask you the why question is because if I understand the context, I can actually anticipate you. And that was another light bulb moment for me. And it's something I share with my visionary leaders now. When your team asks you why, they're not challenging your authority or your brilliance. They're asking for context. They're asking so they can anticipate and bring their best. And for a lot of visionary leaders, I think we run into that sometimes. We think our brilliance is sufficient, and yet it's not. So thanks to Amanda, she taught me that lesson.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. So what's the future plans for you with the business? Like in the next 12 months or so, what are you most excited about?
I'm really excited about this cohort model because I think it brings extra value to the clients first and foremost, but it's super scalable on our part. And one of the challenges with dealing with the 10 clients right now is they're following a similar process, but for us in delivering it, we're always task switching. In the cohort model, I think we have the opportunity to bring people along in a way where we're not task switching as much. And I think that frees us up mentally to create more content, to create more insights for our clients. So I think it's a win-win. I think it makes it more scalable, more profitable. And because we're not task switching as much, I think it opens up more creativity on our side. And that's what I'm most excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. Going through that journey yourself, and I know we worked together on a few things along the way, what would be your advice with someone who's maybe at the beginning of their journey, who's really kind of worried perhaps about getting really specific with who they're trying to serve? They might be trying to serve a lot of different people right now, and they're at that sort of precipice like you were around going all in and then being able to put themselves out there on LinkedIn. So I'd love to hear from you. What were some of the, I guess, key lessons that we worked on together that made a big difference that might help some others listening to this?
I think you always have invited your clients to go deep rather than broad, and find that niche and push uncomfortably through that process of really narrowing your focus. And I think there's a lot of resistance because we don't know what's going to work. Well, you won't know what's going to work until you go all in on something.
Yeah.
It's like building a bridge to an island with 3 different bridges being built at the same time. None of them are going to cross the water.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have enough supply and materials and insight, maybe even financial runway to build one bridge across the water, but you don't have enough to build 3. And so pick one, build that one bridge, and test. You're not committed to it forever, and you're going to likely change it 500 times between now and the time it takes off. But for me, I love the fact that you push gently, nicely, but you push that. And I think that's such an important thing, because if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. And the other thing I really loved about our work together was that you really invited us to be referable. And that's the other side of that niche conversation. If you know who you're serving and how you're serving them, then you become more referable, which is the whole point of LinkedIn. Is to be known for something that people can say, well, I know Amy, she's the LinkedIn. She's the person that can get you effective results on LinkedIn, whether you're an organization or an individual. If you were just an executive coach, Amy, how would I have found you from the US to Australia? I mean, that's quite a jump.
Totally. No, that's awesome. So really sort of fighting that resistance that might come up in the beginning, because I love the analogy there with the bridges. Building one bridge over 3 is going to be way faster in terms of the journey than continually refining that as well. Because like you said, we don't know what's going to work. There's no guarantees in life unless you're all in, and you can actually at least know for certain that you've tried everything in your power with that one thing and that one area of focus to make it work.
But the other thing I would say too, Amy, even if it doesn't work, doesn't mean it won't work. And so I may set that aside for a bit. Maybe I'm just too far ahead of the market. And so I keep some of those ideas in our back of our head that we may bring back up at some point. But for now, we found the real pain point of our clients, and we're all in on solving that for them.
Fantastic. And I'd love to hear, I know community is a big part of what you do with your clients and are looking to build that as well. And I know you're a part of our In Demand Coach Tribe community as well. So love to hear around like how community and being able to collaborate with others has really helped you along in your own business journey.
So important. I think that as an entrepreneur, it's very easy to feel alone, and that you're the only one struggling with this kind of work, and that your idea is crazy, and you're not necessarily going to get that support from home. Our spouses and our family may not be wired in the same way we are wired to pursue this passion we have and the risks that are associated with getting started. So you have to have that tribe of people who understand, who are going through the same thing. That's what your Lion Tribe does in so many ways. And, so that's one outlet for me, but even for my clients, they have the same thing. They're the only one in their community that does their job. There's nobody in their community they can talk to about their struggles. And so one of the things I do, a coach might not agree that this was a smart move. I do a CEO forum for 6 CEOs at no charge. And I do it because I can be part of it. And I gain so many insights and so many referrals out of that. Many of them are former clients. Several are not, but I don't care. We have such a great time together, and it gives me such entree into that community. So it's worth, not everything has to be something you charge for.
Totally. There's always value in all different ways. Doesn't have to be monetary in the business as well. And I think, the end goal is to love what you do, to be really fulfilled and work with great people. And I think you're a testament of doing that, Winston. So it's awesome to hear your journey and your story. For those who are wanting to connect, where can they go to find you, Winston? Where's the best way to connect?
So our website is forloveofteam.com. We also have a podcast that's on a little bit of a hiatus, but it's called For Love of Team. And on LinkedIn, I'm at Winston Faircloth on LinkedIn, and For Love of Team on LinkedIn.
That's good. I'm glad LinkedIn made it in there. It's a total trick question for anyone that comes on. So
Yes.
absolutely, yeah, go and connect with Winston and learn more about the work that he's doing. And I think you're an absolute phenomenal leader and CEO. And I think it's a real testament to what you've said there around sort of pushing through some of that resistance and not feeling like you're the only one going through some challenges and problems in business, because I think it's very relatable for a lot of people listening to this who might be experiencing similar kind of feelings or looking at moving in a similar direction. So thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you, Amy, so much.